Over the past year, I've done multiple insane challenges that involve Pizzaface and other enemies chasing me throughout each of Pizza Tower's 19 main levels. However, the one thing that all of these challenges have in common is that they all take place purely in the level's escape sequence. Mods like Lap 3 and 4 are amazing and the main reason why I'm still playing this game, but I always found myself wondering if it was possible to take it a step further. What if instead of just chasing you in Lap 3 or 4, Pizzaface chased you throughout the entire level from start to finish? Would it even be possible to beat any level, and if so, how many could you beat? This was the question I set out to answer over a month ago when I started working on this video. I assumed that most levels would just be impossible and this would be a simple but quick video that I could work on while waiting for the next Pizza Tower update. Well, you can probably tell by this video's length, but that's not at all what happened. What started out as a fun little experiment quickly turned into several multi-hour marathons where I would spend dozens of attempts just trying to beat a single room. This challenge is so much more than just an extended Lap 3, and I could easily say that this is one of the hardest things I've ever attempted in this game. In this video, I'm gonna run through every level on every floor, showing the different strategies that I used in order to figure out if each one was possible or not. Alright, so before we begin, I just want to set a few ground rules for this challenge. First of all, levels considered to be possible if I can complete each individual room while Pizzaface is chasing me. As much as I would love to do each level in one unbroken attempt, some of these levels are simply too difficult for me to complete all in one run. For these levels, I had to create a spliced run, which basically means I completed each room in a level separately and edited them all together. Since Pizzaface respawns whenever you enter a new room, this is basically the exact same thing as doing the level in a single attempt, as well as being much better for my sanity. Another thing is that everything I do in this challenge is on a vanilla unmodded version of Pizza Tower. I want to make this very clear because there are several mods that make it so that Pizzaface chases you the whole level, namely Scout to Go Death mod and the Pizza Rank mod. However, these mods slow Pizzaface down significantly and make him much easier to avoid, which I think is kinda lame. This challenge will feature an unnerfed full speed Pizzaface for maximum suffering. Finally, I just want to say that if you like this video and want to see more similar challenge videos in the future, you should definitely subscribe. Alright, without further ado, let's begin. Being the easiest and most straightforward level in the game, it was obvious from the start that even if none of the other levels were possible, I would at least be able to beat John Gutter. This turned out to be a pretty accurate assumption, as I was able to easily fly through the level with nothing posing much of a challenge. Nothing, that is, until I got to the pillar room. The pillar room in this level is one long hallway that only has one entrance and exit. If you try to turn around after hitting Pillar John, you end up running straight into Pizzaface with seemingly no way to get past him without dying. Luckily, this room happens to have a pretty high ceiling, giving me just enough space to perform a wall jump and barely avoid death. Being able to perform this juke is pretty important, as it will be required to get past several sections in later levels, so keep it in mind. After that, the level is basically just Lap 3 but with slightly more stuff blocking the way, allowing us to reach the goal and prove it to be possible. The next level, Pizzascape, introduces what will be a recurring issue throughout this challenge: transformations. Most levels in this game introduce at least one unique transformation, completely altering Peppino's moveset and trading off mobility for other abilities like being able to destroy rats. This is fine until you remember that mobility is literally the most important aspect of this challenge, so losing it is basically a death sentence. But I mean, come on, I'm pretty good at this game. Surely a simple transformation won't be able to stop me. Oh, yeah, so in the third room of this level, we run into a pretty big issue. We have to go to the right, climb all the way up, grab the night power up, then go down a slope, zigzag left and right, and finally go through the door. I actually managed to climb up and grab the sword, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape without Pizzaface catching me. The night power up is simply too slow, and I couldn't seem to get enough distance to slip by. Hey, editing booklet here, coming to say that this guy's actually a stupid idiot. I came back to this level after recording all the other levels, and I actually managed to beat this room using this weird down thrust trick that I swear was like frame perfect or something. It was so hard. After that, I completed a couple more rooms, including this extremely difficult room involving trying to get down to this key. To get down this winding hallway, I used a technique similar to Wasteyard Lap 4, and it was pretty difficult, but I eventually pulled it off. I just wanted to drop in and say that I managed to complete more rooms than initially anticipated, but the conclusion is basically the same, so I'm just gonna play the clip. Even if this room was possible though, there's another even more impossible room later in the level that also involves a night power up. In this room, you have to drop drop down, grab the sword, slowly jump up, and use this slope. All the while you're in a tiny space with Pizzascape spawning right in the middle of it. You can probably see why I gave up on this level now. Pizzascape's definitely impossible. Thankfully, Ancient Cheese starts off much better than Pizzascape with a lot of large areas and plenty of space to dodge Pizzascape. I initially thought that this key would be a problem due to how enclosed the area is, but for some reason collecting a key despawns Pizzascape temporarily, so I was able to grab it and just run out. Everything was going extremely smoothly until I got to this room. You have to kill 2 rats by throwing bombs. The one at the top is pretty easy, but it's the bottom rat that causes problems. You have to somehow pick up the bomb up here and then throw it and slip by without getting caught by Pizzaface. I tried for over an hour to do this and I got close a couple times, but I just could never manage to throw the bomb without getting caught. I was so close, but sadly it seems this level is impossible. Impossible for me, that is. Enter Yadacat, an absolutely insane Pizza Tower speedrunner who is way better at the game than me. I made a video on some Pizza Tower B-sides he made a while ago, and I happen to remember that he actually made some videos doing this exact challenge. As luck would have it, one of the levels that he did also happened to be Ancient Cheese, and let me tell you, the things he does in this video are unbelievable. I would have never been able to do any of this in a million years, so if you want to see this level played and completed by an actual professional, make sure you check out his video. With that though, I can now officially say that this level is indeed possible. While we're on the topic of Yadacat, I also want to say that he managed to complete Bloodsauce Dungeon with this challenge too. I literally couldn't get past the second room and there's no way I'm gonna spend countless hours playing this level again, so I'm just gonna say it's possible and move on. Thankfully, these 2 levels were the only 2 that I needed to look up in order to verify. Every other level in this video I was able to either beat or prove it to be impossible all by myself. Oregano Desert thankfully is pretty straightforward in terms of if it's possible or not. The first couple sections, while requiring a bit of memory, are pretty easy to speed through. However, problems arise when the fire mouth transformation is introduced. The animation for consuming a hot wing is very long, and unfortunately Pizzaface doesn't stop moving while you're transforming, causing him to kill you every time. There's no way to skip this part, so this level is definitely impossible. Wasteyard is a similar case. Starting out, the level's pretty easy, but once you encounter the ghost transformation, everything falls apart. You're supposed to take a bit of a loop around the structure, shedding your transformation at the top, but Ghost Peppino is just so slow that by the time you reach the priest, Pizzaface is right behind you and there's nothing you can do. I tried for a while, but this is the furthest that I got, so this level's also impossible. I went into Fun Farm pretty much certain that it was impossible. Sure, the first part of the level might seem pretty easy with linear structuring and no places to slow down, but as soon as Mort shows up, the level turns into an absolute nightmare. In the room where Mort is introduced, you have to go up a ladder, go to the left, wait until Mort hops out of the well, and then go back through the rat to your right. This process takes forever and Mort is positioned basically right above where Pizzaface spawns, so I instantly just assumed that this wasn't gonna happen. However, I did notice that the room had a pretty high ceiling and a decent amount of space to move around. Maybe if I replicated that wall jump I used in John Gutter, I could stall for long enough to grab Mort and get out. I was skeptical, but I decided to at least give it a try before I moved on to the next level. I kept restarting for the next 10 minutes, each attempt losing confidence in the idea until suddenly this happened. After I managed to pull that off, I knew I couldn't stop there. I was in too deep to fail now. Just a couple rooms after that, I ran into my second obstacle. This room was entirely vertical, requiring you to slowly jump up to each level to reach the top. However, I figured out that by skipping this first platform and making extremely optimal movements, I could just barely reach the top and squeeze by before Pizzaface killed me. A very similar room appeared soon after, requiring me to make precise jumps to escape this small pit, but the real challenge came at the end of the room. See, in order to exit this room, I needed to get rid of Mort using this priest. However, the priest was at the end of this long winding hallway with no way to make it back out before Pizzaface caught up. Thankfully, there was actually a secret at the end of this path, so I entered it, narrowly avoided Pizzaface, and performed a precise slide to get out of the secret and reach the door. The final challenge came when I reached the pillar. If I tried to just break the pillar immediately and go into this gap, Pizzaface would catch up, so I had to do one last precise wall jump in order to sail right over Pizzaface and barely escape. After that, I finished the escape sequence and was finally able to prove that this level is possible. That level was absolutely insane. Let's get back to some simpler levels with Fastfood Saloon. This level is extremely easy until the introduction of the sausage. This room has multiple tight turns culminating in one last long hallway with only one way in and out, similar to the one in John Gutter. However, unlike the one in John Gutter, this hallway has a very low ceiling, which means that I can't use a wall jump to juke Pizzaface. Without that, there's literally no way I can press this button and escape without dying, so I feel pretty comfortable with labeling this level as impossible. Moving up to floor 3, I started out with Crust Cove. This is yet another level that starts out relatively slow but has a massive difficulty spike a couple rooms in. In this room you have to run to the left before dropping down and jumping into this barrel, but no matter how fast I was, I could just never reach the barrel before Pizzaface intercepted and killed me. I even tried entering and exiting the secret first, which is only barely possible with a well-timed jump, but I still just didn't have enough time to get into the barrel. There's a chance that this is a really precise trick and I just suck at the game, but for now I'm just gonna say this level is impossible. I actually went into Deep Dish 9 feeling pretty confident that it would be possible. The level's overall pretty linear and puts a lot of emphasis on momentum with mechanics like the rocket. However, that confidence was shattered pretty quickly once I reached this room. You have to take a rocket and zigzag down to crash through this cheese meteor, but I wasn't even able to make it past the second turn before Pizzaface completely blocked my way and killed me. This part is at the very start of the area, so there's really no wiggle room in terms of how I approach the trick. The rocket just takes so long to turn that I can't even make any inputs before I'm already dead. Sadly, this level is very likely impossible. Man, it seems like it's been a while since I actually completed a level. I wonder what level's next. Well, better luck next time, I guess. In all seriousness, I had no doubt in my mind that this level would be impossible. I mean, you literally have to stop dead in your tracks on several occasions to hit the ball, giving Pizzaface all the time in the world to casually stroll up and destroy your hopes and dreams. In addition to that, the escape sequence features multiple claustrophobic sections where you have to make precise golf shots with Pizzaface right on your tail. There's actually no way this level's possible, right? So golf starts off with a couple relatively simple courses where you can kind of just hold forward and the ball will go into the hole. Another course is then introduced, this time requiring you to hit the ball back and forth down a couple twisting pathways in order to reach the goal. This section is harder than the previous ones, but I was able to juke Pizzaface a bit in order to buy enough time to get the ball all the way down and into the hole. Thankfully, the other courses in this level aren't required, so I was able to run past every door until I reached the pillar room. However, I couldn't relax yet, as this is by far the hardest part of the level. Starting out, I had to perform another wall jump juke to get past Pizzaface and barely reach the door. After that, I was able to pass this section using the same strategy I used in the levels lab 4. The following room is another mini golf course requiring some very quick and precise shots in order to get Greaseball into the goal before Pizzaface reached me. Finally, I just had to make a precise super jump into a shoulder bash and I had essentially beaten the level. I ran my victory lap and reached the door, thereby proving that golf was indeed possible. I feel like a broken record at this point, but I had absolutely zero faith that this level would be possible. Not only is it one of the longest levels in the entire game, but it's also almost completely played as Gustavo and Brick, a set of characters that has a notoriously harder time avoiding Pizzaface and Peppino. Add to that some of the most complicated and twisting level design in the entire game, and I really had my work cut out for me. The first section being played by Peppino was pretty easy, as I was able to just run through without much trouble. This ended pretty quickly though, as only a couple rooms in I was forced to confront one of the most diabolical challenges in the entire run, the Gustavo and Brick tutorial. I'm not joking. Immediately after switching to Gustavo and Brick, you're forced to go through a quick tutorial that teaches the character's mechanics. The only problem is Pizzaface doesn't stop following you when you enter this room, meaning that I had to somehow find a way to navigate this cramped space as Gustavo and Brick without dying. It took a lot of trial and error, but I eventually managed to find a route that involved taking several tight jumps before utilizing a fast slide through this gap that gave me enough space to wall jump up to the door. This was extremely difficult and it really set the tone for the rest of the level. This was only the start though, as a couple rooms later I ran to this nightmare of a section. For this part I had to run all the way to the right side of this room and wait until Pizzaface got close. After that I had to quickly jump up and run to the end of this hallway before performing a weird double jump into dash to hit this mushroom and get bounced up safely. The following rooms require some very tight maneuvering around corners and some close calls, but they are absolutely nothing compared to the room that comes next. This singular part took me over 2 hours to figure out and do once. At first glance this room looks impossible impossible with bending narrow passages and a bunch of crap in the way to slow you down. However, I figured out that I could use multiple quick double jumps to get up to this ledge with a good amount of distance between me and Pizzaface. I then had to jump up to this section and spam the jump button as soon as I landed in order to pull off an extremely narrow dodge over Pizzaface and into the exit passageway. We're only halfway through the level at this point, and the second half is just as brutal as the first. The next couple of rooms involve more twisting paths and narrow dodges, which feels like a breath of fresh air after what I had to just do. After this extremely tight double jump, we get to this room. If you try to just go down this path instantly, Pizzaface will cut you off, so I had to lure him all the way up to this area where Jerome is hidden and then jump over him to build some distance. This gave me just enough time to climb down this ladder and run through the bottom half of the room to escape. I ran through one last relatively simple room until I finally reached the pillar room. This room requires you to make a pretty sharp U-turn, but luckily I was able to just wait a bit before dashing through Pillar John in order to slip right under Pizzaface. The escape goes pretty much the same as it does on lap 3 until you reach this part about halfway in. This room was already pretty difficult on lap 3, requiring you to quickly navigate up this winding path before making an extremely close dodge to get to the door. However, it's now been made even more difficult thanks to the addition of these two rows of enemies. The first row can easily be taken out just by running through them, but there's basically no way to run through the second row without getting hit, causing you to slow down and get caught. Luckily, Gustavo's able to kick Brick, turning him into a projectile that can kill enemies. I've been using this move the entire run, but I think this is the first time that it's actually required. I had to run through the first set of enemies, climb up the ladder, kick Brick into the second set of enemies, and then slip back down the ladder and barely avoid Pizzaface. I was then able to re-enter the room and use the same strategy that I used in lap 3 now that the enemies were gone. After reaching the top of the room, I casually strolled all the way to the exit door of the level, finally proving that Gnome Forest is possible. Thankfully, Pig City is a far simpler challenge than Gnome Forest. The first half of the level is pretty much free since I was able to skip nearly every taxi and the one required taxi area isn't that difficult. Once I reached Gustavo and Brick section, it actually wasn't too difficult either. I kept waiting for some impossible part to show up, but this level kinda just ended up being a nice break in difficulty. There were a couple parts that were kinda close and I had to do this weird U-turn in the pillar room to escape, but overall this level was surprisingly easy. After I activated pizza time, I had to do the escape sequence, but I already knew from playing lap 3 that this level had one of the easiest in the game. After what was by far the most relaxing experience of this challenge, I finally reached the door and proved that Pig City was very much possible. This level, whose name I always mess up, is a pretty weird case. The first couple rooms go very smoothly as per usual, but then we get to this room. In order to get to this door, you have to go down this pit and then back up with a super jump. Seems pretty easy, right? Well, for some reason, no matter how hard I tried, I simply couldn't figure out a way to get out of this room without getting caught by Pizzaface. I tried waiting a bit until super jumping, didn't work. I tried super jumping immediately, didn't work. I tried shoulder bashing to the right and then diving down, didn't work. This space is just too small, and the way the room is laid out, Pizzaface will always end up right between you and this door. Even if I was able to get past this room, I can think of multiple other rooms in this level that would make it unbeatable, so I'm just gonna accept defeat and say it's impossible. I'm just gonna go ahead and show my best attempt on this level. So yeah, anyways, oh shit's impossible. While every level up to this point had at least a couple rooms that were either easy or free, Peppibot Factory doesn't pull its punches, with each and every one of its rooms ranging from extremely challenging to basically impossible. Immediately after starting the level, I had to make two very stressful super jumps, one from the bottom all the way up to this platform and another to exit the room. This first room was made a lot harder by the fact that after typing the command to spawn Pizzaface, I had to scramble to pick up my controller so I had enough time to run away without dying. The second room raises the difficulty a lot, requiring a very specific path in order to get to the top alive. I had to first run to the right, wait to juke Pizzaface, run to the left, juke Pizzaface again, make this really finicky wall jump, and then make one final extremely close dodge on this ramp in order to reach this line of enemies, where I could then run over to the bounce pad and safely leave the room. After that, there's a slightly easier section where you have to make several jukes while running on conveyor belts. I was able to consistently get past the actual hard part of this room, but died multiple times when trying to enter the door at the end because I suck at this game. The following room features even more extremely close dodges, this time requiring me to maintain top speed in order to break these metal blocks. I kinda just brute forced this room without ever figuring out a route, and it seemed to work out, so that's nice. Finally, it comes time for the dreaded pizza box section. I'm just gonna show this entire part unedited, and you'll probably be able to understand its difficulty just by watching. Even after all that, after beating every single torturous room, I still had to essentially rebeat Peppibot Factory Lap 3, debatably the hardest lap to beat with Pizzaface chasing you in the entire game. I've beat this level on both Lap 3 and 4 multiple times at this point, and the final climb still had me sweating bullets, but in the end I was able to reach the exit and prove that Peppibot Factory is verifiably possible. Don't Make a Sound is a combination of a lot of things we've seen in previous levels. The first couple of rooms are very easy, letting you run in a straight line, for most of them similar to other levels. Then as the level continues, the rooms begin to become more twisting and maze-like. I began to have to juke Pizzaface multiple times per room, even occasionally going off of the main path and into a side area in order to avoid him. In this room I even had to go into and do this entire secret just so I could reposition Pizzaface away from the exit and leave safely. The hardest part of this level is probably this room near the end. You have to go upwards into this tiny gap and then drop back down so you can lure the sausage guy away from the ladder, after which he can climb down and escape. When I first saw this room I actually just gave up at first because it looked completely impossible, but I came back to the level later to see if I could find a route. Eventually I found that with a very precise wall jump I could just barely get past Pizzaface while also baiting the sausage guy away from the ladder, allowing me to escape the room and continue the run. After that I made it to the pillar, completed the escape without any issues, and proved that this level is possible. I didn't really know what to expect going into Pizzascare because I rarely replay it, so I kinda just decided to go in and see how far I could get. Everything went smoothly for the most part until I got to this section about halfway through the level. This part is a long winding vertical pathway that is absolutely covered in enemies. At first I thought for sure this would be impossible due to the fact that by the time I reached it, Pizzaface was already pretty close behind me, but I eventually figured out that if I just did a super jump in the right spot followed by some quick wall jumps, I could barely make it to the top, drop down, and then leave. Shortly after, there's another tricky part that requires several quick super jumps and some weird movement in order to navigate a twisting pathway without getting caught. The biggest challenge, however, comes in the room containing the pillar. This is a massive area with a long hallway filled with enemies leading up to Pillar John. Once you navigate across the whole room, you have to go down this winding path in order to deposit the ghost, after which you destroy the pillar and go down the same winding path again before finally being able to roll through this bowling rat and leave the room. This initially seemed absolutely hopeless, as there's no way I'd be able to pull all that off with Pizzaface constantly on my tail. However, I remembered a speedrunning trick I learned a while back that allows you to completely skip the winding path and instantly run into Pillar John. When you first enter the room, you have to run until you reach the Exorcist to get his cross. Then you run as fast as you can without bumping into anything so you're able to reach Mach 4. If you jump over this ramp and then hold down, you'll slip right through this gap, and since you're traveling so fast, the ghost will be unable to catch up in time to stop you, allowing you to run straight through Pillar John. By pulling off this trick, I was able to narrowly avoid Pizzaface and run back to the start with relative ease, allowing me to complete the escape and prove that this level is possible. Many of you watching might be thinking that war is obviously possible. After all, War Lap 3 is possible, and that's basically the same thing, right? Well, there's a problem with that, and it all comes down to how the later laps work. See, whenever you go through a lapping portal, the level drops you off at the pillar room to redo the entire escape sequence. However, the escape is slightly different this time, as any enemies and stage hazards that you destroyed previously stay destroyed. This makes the level much easier to traverse, allowing you to beat subsequent laps much quicker without having to worry about stopping you use transformation and killing rats. Well, due to the nature of this challenge, I'm starting from the beginning, meaning that I still have to deal with every single enemy, gunblock, and rat while Pizzaface is chasing me. War is also a unique case because it usually takes your gun away in subsequent laps, but since this challenge lasts from the beginning to the end of the level, I have to use the gun for that entire time. The gun takes away the most important move in Peppina's moveset, the grab dash, replacing it with a shotgun shot that halts all of your momentum and is overall a massive downgrade in mobility. While this by itself isn't enough to make the level impossible, when combined with everything else, the gun makes nearly every section more difficult and requires me to use different strategies than normal. Starting out, the level is practically the same with the exception of some slight route deviations in order to destroy certain gun blocks and rats that block the path. The first fairly difficult room is this section where you have to typically juke Pizzaface in this very tight hallway. There are actually plenty of ways to do this part without grabbing, but I ended up doing this awkward slow roll which was surprisingly consistent. Dive bombing into the next room, a new problem problem appears in the form of this rat. The only way to destroy this rat is to stand behind it and wait for a missile to blow it up. You can probably see the issue with this. By the time the missile hits the rat, Pizzaface was already on my screen, giving me barely enough time to jump down into the uncovered hole. The next room plays exactly the same as the lap 3, but the following room is where things get really bad. This room is one long continuous path with Peppino dropping down in the middle. You're expected to run to the right, grab the rocket, and then ride it all the way to the other side of the room in order to blow up this rat. However, if you try to do this with Pizzaface chasing you, he'll intercept you right as you start flying, in a similar situation to Deep Dish 9. Unlike in Deep Dish 9 though, there's a lot of space between the rocket and the entrance to the room. I figured out that by running over to the rocket as fast as possible and instead of grabbing it immediately, I jumped over and ran up this wall, I was able to lure Pizzaface upwards just enough to grab the rocket and fly under him. This took me several tries, but once I pulled it off, I was able to fly all the way to the other end and destroy the rat to exit the room. We finally made it to the hardest part of the level, the facility. This section is where 90% of my attempts on lap 3 would die, with multiple hard tricks and little room for error. The first of these tricks was this notorious super jump into this tiny gap that's extremely difficult even for seasoned players. Luckily, this trick doesn't involve any grabbing, so I was able to pull it off without issue. Next, we just have to make our way down this hallway and... oh, yeah, so this part is sadly where the challenge ends. You have to wait for like 5 seconds until this missile reaches the rat, and there's literally nowhere else to go, letting Pizzaface easily catch up and end the run. This is an obstacle that we simply can't get past, meaning that war is impossible. In the end, over half of the main levels were possible. 10 out of 19 levels is far more than I was expecting when I started this challenge, and I'm honestly very happy with the result. Before I go over the final results though, I want to cover all the extra levels that I didn't touch on. I initially thought that I wouldn't even be able to try the challenge on this level thanks to there not being a timer during pizza time, but I figured out that if I spawned Pizzaface in a different level and then teleported to the start of the tutorial using a command, I could get it working like normal. This ended up all being for nothing, sadly, as I couldn't get past the second room. You have to body slam this metal block, and no matter how fast I went, I just couldn't seem to break it without getting caught. This may be possible and I'm just bad at the game, but I couldn't beat this section after like an hour of trying, so I don't know. Next up, we have the Crumbling Tower of Pizza. This level had a similar issue to the tutorial where the level just ends if the timer runs out instead of spawning Pizzaface, so I had to use the same teleporting trick in order to do attempts. For this level, you may be thinking, well, I've seen plenty of people complete this level on laps 3 and 4, so it must be possible on this challenge. Unfortunately, the Crumbling Tower of Pizza suffers the same problem as War, with much of the level being significantly harder the first time you play through it. This issue is very apparent when we get to the third room of the level. This room immediately starts with a loop around the structure to grab a gun, drop back down, and shoot these gun blocks. At first, it seemed like the gun animation just lasted way too long for me to be able to grab it and survive, but I actually figured out a really weird route involving super jumping up this tight gap, grabbing the gun, and then running out of the room to reset Pizzaface. I ended up getting about halfway through the next room before giving up because having to enter like 5 commands every attempt was getting annoying. However, I have a feeling that this level actually may be possible. There are a couple rooms like the weenie section that may cut it a bit close, but from what I've seen, there's nothing outright unbeatable. I decided to not do the level this time because I've already spent far too long on this video, but if enough of you want me to, I may consider revisiting and attempting to beat it eventually. Finally, I'll cover the 2 levels added in the Halloween update, starting with Trick or Treat. I actually beat this level on the Lap Hell hotfix mod a while back, and this is the only level in this entire challenge that's the exact same when comparing it to lap 3. The hotfix mod doesn't slow Pizzaface down at any point, and when each new lap starts, the entire level resets so every obstacle is present. Since the level is possible to beat on both lap 3 and 4, it's also possible to beat with this challenge. Still, just to make sure, I decided to rebeat the level by spawning Pizzaface in at the beginning. It only took a couple tries, but I eventually did prove that it's possible. The last level I'm gonna talk about is Secrets of the World, and I'm gonna keep this short. I'm 99.999% sure that this one's impossible. I played for about 30 minutes, and in that short amount of time I identified multiple rooms that I could already see were pretty unlikely that I'd be able to beat. Pizzaface would either spawn right in front of me, or I'd be forced to use an extremely slow power up like the ghost power up, giving him plenty of time to catch up and kill me. I really don't want to spend like 100 hours just to see if this one's even feasible, so I'm just gonna say it's impossible and leave it at that. And there you have it, every single main pizza tower level plus a couple extras with Pizzaface chasing me the entire time. Here's the final list of possible and impossible levels. Again, I'm genuinely so surprised I was able to beat this many. I went into this challenge expecting maybe 3 or 4 levels would be possible at most, and my expectations have been absolutely crushed. In the future, I think it would be cool if someone were to take the remaining impossible levels and adjust them so that they're actually beatable. This challenge is really fun, and it would be awesome if I could play through the entire game with it activated. Also, for those of you who want to see my full runs for every level shown in this video, I'm working on a full compilation of them that I'll hopefully post pretty soon after this video is done. Now that I'm finally finished with this challenge, I think I'm gonna take a much needed break from Pizza Tower. I'll see you guys in the next video.